We're live.
Yay! And it's recording? Oh, I just bumped the table.
Yes.
Doing that. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else here?
No.
No.
Not yet.
Okay,
It's
good.
just us. Well, hi.
Cool.
Hi, us.
Yay! This is take 2.
Take 2. We
We've
did
done
this
this.
once, and we didn't record it at all. I went
We
to
were brilliant.
push stop broadcast like I see now, and it
Right.
said start. And they're like, good for us.
That was our
Talking to
trial run.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're here again. I'm Erin Brown.
And I'm Jay Pryor.
And the working title of this is My Body, My Story, wherein we'll be talking to each other and other people about their narratives and what's going on in their lives and with their bodies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And last time we talked about how we met. Should we talk about that, or why we ended up hooking up together?
Sure. So people kept coming to me and talking about Jay. It's like, there's this guy. He does like women's empowerment coaching locally, and you should know him. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to hear anything about some dude that does women's empowerment work, which maybe is mean of me. Feel free to be angry about that. But I wasn't interested. I'm just like kind of over men telling me how to be a good woman. And then came to find out more about Jay and realized that he's actually an amazing person to do his job. And we have a lot in common, and we decided to work together, which is great.
Sure, yeah. And I mean, I think that, there's a lot of women that maybe women that empower women, or a lot of other coaches. And I think we have that conversation in common. For those of you that are new to me, I'm a transgender person. I don't want to say transgendered now,
Right.
because you told me that was wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'm a trans
told you.
man. And I know, right? You're educating me that it's wrong to say transgender. Anyway, I'm a transgender. I am a trans man is how I identify myself. I was born female is the point, and lived in my life as a woman for 34 years. And one of my reasons for empowering women and wanting to empower women is the difference in how I'm treated now as a man, which we've talked about a little bit, but also that world of, I had this conversation about my body and the loathing that I had for myself and my body. And I had an idea that when I transitioned and got this body, that the conversation would change or go away, and it did not.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really about learning that it had to come from my center, my own personal development, and grounding myself spiritually, and loving myself was what made that conversation go away. And it's the only thing that made that conversation go away. And Erin comes from that same perspective, really focusing on self-love, right?
Mm-hmm. Which is a practice.
Right.
Especially if it's not just really ingrained from the beginning, because what's ingrained in the beginning is that everything about you is wrong and bad and needs fixing.
Well, and everything from a woman's perspective, when I was trained as a woman, is not only that, but my job is to take care of everybody else.
Right.
Not me.
Right.
Right. And well, or at least that was my model. I wouldn't say anybody ever said that to me, but I just had a flash of my mom. I'm the youngest of 9 children. So when and not all of us lived in the house at the same time, but we would sit around the table and sit down to dinner. And sometimes, and granted, we never were very proper. So I didn't even know that, like, something in etiquette I had learned is that waiting until everybody sits down to eat. We didn't do that.
We didn't either.
No, we just ate. And so half the time we were halfway through our meal or almost over before my mom ever sat down, because she would be running around the table getting stuff for everybody else, but never make a request or ask anybody else to get it.
Right.
We just got served by her.
Right.
And she would sit down last and eat. And then, when we were kids, we had to clear the table and do dishes and stuff like that, but she did most of it.
Right. Well, and we learn, in my perspective, we learn that that's a sacrifice, and that there's something like holy about that
Right.
is intrinsic to being a woman.
Right.
And for me, I learned that, and I understand it, and I don't want to take away from women who that's an important part of their identity. But my reframing of that for myself is that I need to take care of myself so that my daughter knows how to take care of herself.
Right.
That I don't have to sacrifice every moment of my day or any moments of my day for others. And, at the end of the day, if we were in a position where someone was going to go without shoes, it would always be me before my daughter.
Of course.
But that's not where we're at most days.
That's right. Right.
I'm not
We're not on the prairie.
No, I'm not like skipping taking her to the emergency room because I need to get in a workout. But on an average day where everybody's like, okay, I put myself first in those scenarios, and I show her that. Sometimes that means leaving her. Sometimes yesterday that meant she played with the neighbor boy and I was out in the yard getting a workout in, but she sees that.
Right.
And she knows why I do that and what it does for me. And I hope that she'll have those things. I think about when I was in college and really just had no coping skills, and I was struggling with depression at the time. I had a basement apartment and didn't leave my room with blackout curtains. Like, it was really bad, and I coped by smoking weed and writing bad poetry. I've got books and books and books for that time, but I imagine that that would have looked a lot different if I had known taking myself for a walk would have been.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got healthy that I looked back at that time and was like, you were sedentary and ate party pizzas, and that contributed to how your body was not serving you.
Right.
But I just never made that connection before. And when I did get out of bed, it was to serve others. I was still the one phone call for friends who were in crisis. I was always helping other people with their problems, but I didn't have the first clue of how to take care of myself, or even that that was something I should do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate, I mean, I have to tell the story again because I think it's been powerful for me and given me a different perspective to look from, because I have in the past come from a perspective that women, you know, as I coach, I've been coaching executive women for a long time. And especially when, you know, these are high-powered women who have powerful lives and they're full of lots of great things. And when the stress hits or the job amount hits, the first thing that goes out the window is their self-care. Always, you know, they give up the massage because they got a deadline. They give up the yoga class. They give up the whatever. And I have in the past come from that perspective that, you know, if you keep in that world of self-care, then you'll be able to serve others from that place. And I love you calling me out on that in my seminar about how I don't want to why do we have to have that? We would never say that about men. Like, I love that you were like, yeah, we're going to hit a couple rounds of golf so he can go serve others from a powerful place, which is such crap. And I so appreciate it because, good God, how easy it is to get sucked into that world of, you know, what we've been taught and told and everything else. So anyway.
So in the interest of making that a practice of self-love and self-care, what are your practices? Because I know our practices are different. And how do you find motivation to keep up with them? Because I know
sometimes
you don't wake up motivated.
Sometimes I don't. And, you know, part of my practice is not my biggest practice is learning not to kick the shit out of myself.
Right.
And so no matter what happens, the goal is at the end of the day, is practicing constant forgiveness. So my first practice is to practice constant forgiveness so that when I don't follow through with what I'm supposed to do for me,
you can shit all over anybody.
Right? Yeah. Because that's what I do. I make it so that, I know, like, I'm somebody who is very clear that there are certain things that when I do them, I am happiest and I'm at the top of my game, right? And I coach and teach that so the women can get clear about what's their formula, because I think everybody has their own. For me, mine is meditate every day for 20 minutes, no matter what. So, twice a day, awesome. But if I meditate every day, 20 minutes, that's awesome. Exercise pretty much every day, at least 4 or 5 times a week. That one's the one that will go south and go out the window for me. And I'll just, you know, do my best not to kick my own ass. I'm really sore today because I got back on the horse yesterday.
What's the horse? What's your horse?
That horse is lifted. I hate to lift weights, so I did my Tony Horton 30-minute. It's 30 minutes and it's over. And it's a full body.
Sure.
You know, and it's phase 1, 2, so it's not gonna hurt me. You know,
sure.
It's doable. And you know, as I'm doing it, I'm proud of myself because I remember the first time I ever did that workout. You know, I could not do 7 push-ups, and I could not do, you know, the reps that he had to. And you know, now, even though it's been months since I worked out, I was able to do the whole workout. So yeah, it was. Yeah. And I always keep in mind progress, not perfection. But my first goal is to not kick my ass about having to make sure I do all those things.
Right.
The other one for me is a low sugar intake. I'm a sugar addict. So I'm not, I have lived my life where I've gone 30 days at a time without any sugar at all. And I don't prefer my life like that. But I do kind of feel great physically, but then I always have a conversation I'm missing out on stuff. So moderate sugar, you know, right now I'm on a 3-day. If I do 3 days without sugar, I feel great. And since I've been doing a lot, I'm coming off of that now. And then the other thing is to stay connected to, Pam Grout in her book, she has E squared and E cubed, but I think it's in E cubed that she talks about having a power posse.
I like this idea.
Yeah. Well, I have a group called My Spiritual Entrepreneurs Group, and we are a spiritually based entrepreneurs group. And they're people that, they're people I want to show up powerfully for, and to surround myself with people that expect me to show up powerfully. And so that's also part of my self-care practice, is to regularly be in touch with and communicate with and have time with people like that lift me up and build me up and things like that.
So your exercise is my meditation.
Okay.
Let's talk about meditation.
Okay.
How do you get started with a practice like that?
Well, I took a class called Mental Mastery by Joey Klein. It's a 12-week class.
Is it online?
You can find it online at Joey Klein. You can either Google Joey Klein or what's the name of his company? It's like the Institute of Transformational Studies or something like that. But his class is called Mental Mastery, and it's a 12-week course. And he does a minute talk, and then he gives you a 20-minute meditation that you're supposed to do for 2 weeks. Okay. And every day for 2 weeks.
Is it guided meditation? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
And then it's another 40-minute talk, and then a new 20-minute meditation that you do for the next 2 weeks. So the whole goal is that it's about flexing your muscle. And he talks about the neuroscience behind meditation and the idea that a consistent meditation practice is what really builds up the gray matter and works and like that. And so doing that class with my wife is what got us on a regular, every day. Now, I mean, weekends, I don't get in as much. I meditate at church, but I don't always get a meditation on the weekends. But we're pretty consistent about doing it every day during the week. And then in the middle of the week on Wednesdays, we hire a babysitter, and Jessica and I go meditate for an hour.
So why?
Well, my default mode is, and this is why I do all personal development work. My default mode is, you're doing this just to piss me off. Like, I can be an angry, surly, salty son of a bitch, to be honest. And my triggers in the past have been pretty short, and I've learned to navigate those through the personal development work I've done, but nothing has made a difference like meditation. Like, there is stuff that in the past would completely piss me off. And now that I'm a meditator, I just go, it's like I don't have the energy for it. It's like I don't even, whatever.
It just wears you out.
It's just, it's like, who cares? Yeah, who's the energy for that? Exactly. It's like, why would I spend my energy that way? So it's made me a lot calmer, a lot more centered. I just think everything that neuroscientists say it does has worked for me. It's improved my focus, but majority of it improves my my calmness and my happiness level. And then the other thing is, I love it. Like, there's so many different cool meditations, and once you get to a place where you slip into that, Garland Landreth is another. He's a meditation teacher, and he's in the movie What the Bleep Do We Know Anyway? If you're familiar with that. And he's a Kansas City guy, and he's one of the guys who orchestrated going to Washington D.C. and doing mass meditations, and the crime rate dropped that time when they were doing that. And he makes sure to say that we didn't go to Washington D.C. and focus on crime dropping. We went to Washington D.C. and we all meditated and focused on love, and the crime dropped. That was an impact of that mass consciousness. And so he talks about when you meditate, you slip into the vortex. And once you've been doing it for a while, you do get to this place where it's like you kind of slip into the vortex. And I've had some amazing visions and just, I don't know, powerful, you just feel the powerful stuff that I've seen and I've experienced in meditation that now I'm kind of addicted to. I mean, now I want to go do it. And if I have the time, because 20 minutes is I have to do that every day, but man, if I have 40 minutes, I'll do 40 minutes. If I have an hour, I'll do it. So that's me in exercise. But not meditation. And I'm a fan of meditation. And I want to do it more. It's probably the same way you feel about exercise. But I just haven't I haven't gotten into the groove of it.
I guess, and into
Yeah.
the habit of it,
Right.
or into prioritizing it, which
Sure.
would be another way to say that.
Yeah.
And I downloaded the
binaural beats one?
Yes, that your wife likes.
Yeah.
I was like, that sounds cool,
Yeah.
but I don't know what I'm listening to.
Right. The other one that she likes right now is there's several chakra aligning ones.
I have an app for
YouTube.
that.
Yeah. She really likes that.
Yeah. So
So-
now, do you do guided meditations, or do you
Sometimes.
just sit? Okay.
Sometimes I just sit in the silence. I like to listen to the daily word on my phone. It
Mhm.
plays it, reads it to you.
Mhm.
So I listen to the daily word and then meditate on that word, or just have that be my mantra. Sometimes I just do silence. I have a new meditation that I'm doing right now from Wayne Dyer's book, Wishes Fulfilled.
Mhm.
He has a meditation that he calls it the Moses Code that was supposedly handed down from Moses. I don't know. Those kind of things. Just if I don't know enough about them to speak, and I shouldn't talk about it
Right.
because
No, I get it.
But
I would
it's
say this is
different
the end of the part where I sound intelligent.
Right, exactly. I mean, I just stop talking. But there's sounds that, and granted, the first time I heard it, it's one of those things that when you meditate you've been a meditator, once you have a practice, once you have a muscle around meditation, there are certain meditations that I hear sometimes that will almost immediately anchor me in.
Mhm.
And that's one of them. I turned on that Wishes Fulfilled meditation, and somebody recommended to me, and it comes in 2 20-minute segments. So I turned on the first one, and immediately as soon as it was on, it was like, felt like someone, grabbed a hold of me and just, I'm in, like I was in. And so I love that kind of stuff. So I'm in, just like, when you talked about exercise, when we spoke to the women's group,
Mhm.
you talked about how when you get bored, you got to mix it up.
Yeah.
And do different stuff.
Right.
Meditation is exactly like that. You can't do the same meditation over and over again. You'll get bored.
Mhm.
So that's why it's on YouTube. You can find any meditation for as many. If you have 5 minutes, you can find a 5-minute meditation. You have 10, you can find a 10. I mean, however much time you have, you can go to YouTube and type in 10-minute guided meditation, and you'll have hundreds.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that where you would recommend someone begin?
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing about beginning is to stop the idea that you're ever going to shut off your mind, because that's not going to happen.
Right.
That's just going to keep going. The goal is not to invite the thought in and start engaging with it.
Right.
It's to let it flow past and go, oh, there's a thought.
Which probably includes going, oh, no, I'm not supposed to be thinking about that.
Right.
I'm going to meditate.
Yeah.
Meditate.
Right. Exactly.
That would be
an
engagement.
Right.
I would like to get into better practice of meditation. But I do walking meditations. I do moving ones, but just the idea of sitting for 20 minutes makes me feel squirrely.
Right. Yeah. And I love it. I mean, and like I said, I had to take a class that made me, or not made me, but I made a commitment to the class that would do it.
Right.
And that's what got me doing it.
Right.
And that one, then within the 12 weeks, I saw the benefit.
Right.
So that was
consistent practice. And I know, same ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
Dang it.
I know, right? Same thing.
Well, and see, for me, that's exercise, and I choose the activity based on how I need to feel. Like if I'm feeling small, I'll do something really powerful. If I just need to get something in, I always commit to 20 minutes.
Right.
Which usually ends up being more intense, but 20 minutes and a walk is fine. That's really helpful to me. Someone the other day said that they like to go running, but they never can commit to going for a run. And I was like, then go for a walk. And then if you end up running, great.
Right.
I don't think I've ever, except for when I was training for a race, been like, I'm going to go for a run. I just set out and then see what happens, which a lot of times is like sprint intervals, which is awesome, but I don't make it bigger than it needs to be. I'm just going out.
Right.
Going outside, I'm going to move around.
Yeah.
It got to the point when Lola was little and she was home with me where she would like suggest that I go running if I got short with her. She would be like, Mommy, do you need to go running?
That is hilarious.
Do you need to take care of yourself?
I wouldn't be surprised if my kids recommended that we go meditate.
Yeah.
And they're like, do you need to meditate for a while?
Yes.
Or something.
Right.
Yes, absolutely I do.
Let's just have Daddy tap out.
Yeah, exactly.
Not into it.
If we had a question, would we know?
That I was wondering. I think so. What's this do?
I don't know.
It says the future is disabled. Figuring things out. I want you to be able to ask a question, viewer person. Yeah, they can chat with us.
Oh, there we go. Yay. Hello.
So you said something, this is, I don't know if we rounded out self-care or not, but you said something the other day that I thought was really fascinating about when we had our session that didn't actually record, about anger and crying and the difference in testosterone levels and what you were able to do. I just found that really interesting.
Well, I mean, what happens is when I took testosterone, when anybody does, that's a woman transitioning to a man, is at some point there becomes a line of demarcation where in the past, at least for me and most of the guy friends I know, when it would be, you know how women get super angry and they then cry, I got super angry and I could not cry. No tears came out, like dry. And then it felt like I needed to do something with that. Like it was a buildup inside me, which is why I ended up ultimately learning to work out because I needed to as a release.
Right.
I don't feel like I need to as much now, but it sure is good for me when I do it.
Right.
But for sure, when people start testosterone, that's something that is helpful.
Right.
Around that. But yeah, there's this world of that men aren't. I don't think men actually have it in them. That's my story about it. I don't know if that's true. Obviously, some men cry pretty easily, but most of the time, if men get angry, they're not going to cry. They're going to feel rage and want to yell, but they're not going to start crying.
Right.
For the most part.
Well,
so
yeah.
It's a different
experience. And crying is such a big part of my life. Not that I'm just like sad, emoting all the time, but like as a release. So what is the self-care then if you don't get that release? Like that just makes me
you got to do something
sad. And is that how men walk around, like unable to have release around that kind of buildup?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, for me, it's definitely was an avenue for that. Working out made that all better. Like that exercise is really great for that. So I could see where men might. I don't know though.
Do you meditate for release? I mean, in terms of like release and self-care.
I wouldn't consider meditation part of a release.
Because what do you do? Like in that moment for you or just anyone? See, if it builds up, I cry. If you can't, and some women are like that.
Yeah.
Some women like all right about crying being like a strength and emoting being a strength and sensitivity being a strength. And some women will say, I'm so jealous. I don't cry. I can't cry.
Yeah.
You know?
But see, I think if somebody can't, I mean, no, that's not, I don't want to say that because I don't want to make that blanket statement that if somebody can't cry, what I was about to say is if somebody can't cry, they probably learned to turn it off when they were little. But I don't know that's too big of a blanket statement. I don't want to make that.
So that's
but it's possible. It's possible. I definitely learned. I tried not to cry and tried to be tough when I was little, but all that led to was bottling it up and then ended up crying a lot. Crying more. Like I just had this death happen in my life that this young trans person killed themselves, and I called her parents, and as soon as her mom got on the phone, I said, "This is Jay," and just started bawling. Like I was totally, and I'm able to cry, but it's only in situations like that. Like I can cry then, but I'm not going to cry if I get mad.
Right.
So it's a different kind of crying.
Right.
I don't know why women cry when they're mad, but they do. That's how it comes out.
It's like it's going to come out, so it comes out of my eye holes. I mean, that makes sense to me. But I don't know. That just stayed with me because it made me think about men in my life being angry and like pacing and stuff like that. And needing a release for it. And I'm just like releasing out my eye holes.
Right.
And it's interesting. And the self-care around that, I think, looks different.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know men who clean.
Right.
Because it's like
I was just talking to a client the other day who, thank God she's getting out of this relationship, but she was saying that she's in a relationship with a guy that if she does cry, then his first response is, "Oh God, please," And that's what I was talking about before, where a lot of times that's men's response to women crying is an eye roll and, this is crap I got to deal. It's like, and to some degree, especially in the world of looking good, men aren't going to be that way to your face. They're they're gonna occur like, oh, they're there and have compassion, but then inside they're rolling their eyes. Or once they get out and have a beer with their friends, they're gonna be like, oh God, you know. Which is why I advocate for no crying in the boardroom. But if it's an automatic response, you can't do that, right? That's what we're talking about. Should I not say that? Don't cry in the boardroom.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's important to know. I was thinking, it's like the conversation we had before I got on here about like telling your children how they're supposed to dress, particularly your girl children. Like, I think there's a conversation about how some people perceive that, but then there's also a conversation about what's authentic to you and how you're going to operate in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, when we had this conversation on the one that didn't record, I was saying that I think it's important to keep your power, you know, and that there's a difference between, and we've all seen it, someone, male or female, but I think the thing you picture is a woman crumbling before you in tears and just looks like a heap of themselves.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And someone who is powerfully emoting, you know, and
Yes.
I've been in that position in a boardroom scenario where I was tearful because I was passionate about what I was saying, but I stayed powerful.
Right.
And I still said assertive things that I meant, and people walked away with that was powerful, and not Erin was in a heap of herself because I wasn't.
Right.
So I think there's a conversation.
And there's a big
about
difference
that.
between that. And that's what we got to last time was it's okay to say don't cry and crumble into a heap in the boardroom. But if you're passionate about something and tears come out, don't be afraid of that either.
Right.
But because that comes out as an expression of your own commitment.
Yeah.
Right. Which is different than crumbling in a heap and boo-hooing and having everybody take care of you. Right? That's the difference.
And that's what doesn't feel good.
No. And it doesn't look good either.
No, and you always have that choice.
Right.
It's about whether or not you're going to apologize or you're going to stand in it.
Right.
You know, which is tricky.
Yeah.
Here we are again, having a
same conversation.
Yeah.
No, but it was that was good. It was a point. It was a great point last time. And I was glad that you said that and I'm glad you reiterated it because now now I will remember that that's where that comes from. If you're going to cry, make sure it's about your commitment, not crumbling. But you know, interesting that you just mentioned about what we were talking about earlier about little girls and what they wear. I just had somebody mention to us last night. My son wore a dress to church on Sunday, and you know, he was the one that said he wanted to wear a dress, and then my daughter he wanted to wear his Elsa dress. He has a Frozen Elsa dress. They both have an Anna and an Elsa dress. Frozen is their favorite thing in the world, and so he decided he wanted to wear his Elsa dress, and then my daughter decided she wanted to wear hers, and so you know, we have no problem with that. Obviously, we're a trans family, so that doesn't even bother us. But we were getting teased last night by some friends in our book club because we had just talked about how sometimes conversations around money for our kids are confusing for us, right? We want our kids to, you know, understand money and understand how money flows and that it's all made up and that there's no such thing as lack and that we come from an abundance model. And at the same time, we don't want them to be spoiled brats, you know? So it's like that world of how do you have this conversation with children about money and not have them have lack consciousness, but also have them understand responsibility and how money works and those kind of
consequences.
All right, so we're talking about how that's a challenge for us. And then we had this gender conversation and some of the people started laughing and were like, so the gender thing's no big deal, but money's a problem. It's like, yeah, we got the gender thing figured out. Like that has no issue. But for some people, that's a confusing. That for some people, having a boy wear a dress is confronting for them. For me, it's not confronting, so it doesn't bother me. Every once in a while, I have a concern for him around is somebody going to mess with him or tease him. For the most part, well, nobody really has teased him or messed with him. He's only 5 for one thing. But little girls often have said to him, "You're a boy. Why do you have a dress on?" And, you know, or they'll say, "You're a girl," and he'll say, "I'm not a girl." And they'll be like, "Why do you have a dress on?" And he'll just say, "Because I like this dress," or whatever. So he doesn't, you know, he took a big, he has a giant stuffed unicorn that is bigger than him, that his sister actually, because somebody gave it to her and he wanted it for a long time, and she finally gave it to him. And at school, he got to do show and tell one day. And so he brought this unicorn that is bigger than, I mean, it's huge, big pink unicorn, right? He walks in his classroom with this big pink unicorn, and the first thing somebody said to him, a little girl, said, "That's a girl toy." And he goes, "No, it's mine." He didn't miss a beat. No, it's mine.
Yep. Good. Perfect.
Never had a question about it. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
My kiddo mentioned it because I think they were in Sunday school together and they were doing dress up, or maybe he brought a dress up because they didn't see him in a dress, but he was wearing one during preschool.
Oh, okay.
And she just mentioned it.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. She was like, it's cool. But she noticed.
Right.
You know, because there's still those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love watching the kids with it because they seem to have a better hold on it.
Oh, completely.
It's just not so heavy. All of it.
Like,
he didn't internalize that's a girl toy and go, I'm not a good enough man, right? Or
when does
that means something about my ability to provide and protect.
That switch gets flipped, that starts out. What age do we become people who completely internalize everything everybody says to us? You know, we don't. And maybe, you know, Emmett does have a little bit of disability. That might be part of, you know, part of his thing is he doesn't necessarily connect socially sometimes. So maybe he's not internalizing it because of that. Because I could see my daughter perhaps internalizing that at 5. But I still think at that early age, they really don't that much. They don't take it in. Well, they're too in the moment. They're in this moment right now.
Right. But they do on other levels, particularly if they're abused. In my former career as a social worker, we talked about like you have like a pitcher or jar, you're filling it for them, and then people take away from it or whatever. But the primary people to fill your cup or your self-esteem or whatever the metaphor is are your parents. And those are really big deposits.
Right.
And then people can take away in little amounts, but nobody can give like the parents and no one can take away like the parents, which is interesting. So it may speak to him having a little bit of the social awkwardness, but it also may speak to him just having a really sound, like sense that he's being fulfilled by his parents and esteem is constantly built.
Yeah, it could be.
We just practiced this with Lola because I told you she shaved half her head and she was really excited about it. And then when it came time to go back to school and see the little girl who said that my hair was creepy and her hair would be creepy, she got a little anxious about it.
Sure.
And so we like had a conversation about it where I was like pretending to be the little girl and I was like, Lola, your hair looks creepy.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't like it. And I was like, cool, let's try again. I don't like your hair. My body and my business. So then we turned it around and I did the same thing quietly and she was like, that's too quiet. And I was like, right, let's try it again. But then she started saying, oh, I like it and it's my business. And by the time she got to school, she like went right up to the little girl and went like this and she told her she thought it was cool. So it was a non-issue, but we prepared for
that's such a good idea to, I do that with my clients where sometimes we do a role. You know, they have a tough meeting they're going to go to or a difficult conversation with a spouse. And I give them words and, that is so helpful to actually give people words. And so you gave her those words, my body, my business.
Oh. My computer alerting me as to what's happening later.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very helpful, I think, to give people words.
Yeah.
To give them the actual conversation that you want, that they could then step into.
Well, and in those scenarios, you're taking off the unnecessary weight of things. Like if I'm needing to have a difficult conversation with my spouse about the dishes, and really it's about my needing to be respected in my home or something, that the conversation needs to be about dishes, then we make sure that the conversation is about dishes. Or whatever the like unnecessary weight can be taken off to get to the words that they need. Because I find a lot of people come to a coaching scenario with just like all this stuff and you just sort of help them boil it down to what the actual thing is. And that's where they need words.
Yes.
It's not like telling them what they mean, but like helping them get to the what they mean.
Yeah. Well, and this leads into Jessica and I were just talking about how one of the things that comes out of coaching and that comes out of good personal development work is that world of being willing to be surprised and to let people grow on, we all have our own version of how we know people are going to be. Like we have trained people how to treat us. And then we start growing and they don't know how to deal with that, And so with my clients, I do a lot of, I had a perfect example is I had a woman in the seminar who in the seminar said that she kept people at arm's length. That was just something that she did. And then she said, even her husband. And I was like, so let's talk. And so we, in the seminar, talked about what would be possible. And could she give up? Because in her world, if she was going to be vulnerable with him, he was going to behave a particular way. And that's what we all decide, right? So we decide, if I'm this way, you're going to be this way, because you've been that way every other time, right? And so it takes a lot of courage and vulnerability to give up that this is going to be the time that you're not going to be that way. But the reality is, it's because you're showing up differently. You know, like she's not being defensive.
Yeah.
She's willing to be vulnerable and courageous. So he has to show up differently.
Right.
I know that, but the client doesn't necessarily know that.
Right.
And so they go into the conversation on a wing and a prayer sometimes, being willing to be vulnerable and courageous, but it works every time because, you know, there's a difference between showing up defensive and yelling at people, or, you know, then showing up vulnerable and courageous. And, you know, once you show up like that, people respond in a powerful way.
Right.
And why did we start this conversation? We're talking about assuming how people are going to be. I don't even know why we're talking about that, but assuming how people are going to be, and sometimes needing specific words and or ways of being to step into, to be able to access, giving up that we have any idea how people really are.
Right.
We don't.
Right. Or giving them the opportunity to be different.
Right. Yeah.
Because they get to grow and evolve too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that we teach people how to treat us thing is so hard.
Yes.
It's so hard, especially because you get to a point where, I don't know, I'm thinking of my former narratives, like I get that, but I didn't used to. And it used to make me really mad when people said that, because I had this narrative that, like, first of all, something was wrong with me. And then once I got through something that's wrong with me, like I'm just deserving of this treatment, and moved on to I don't deserve it, then I was in a victim place.
Right.
You know, like, no, I don't deserve this, so you are at me, you know, which is hard. It's hard to move through that and say this is unfair, but also acknowledge that you have allowed it.
Yeah.
In any way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to be responsible for it.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to move into that space where you're just angry at everyone. Yeah.
Well, and to come from that perspective that people just don't get you.
Right.
It's if they really understood you or really loved you, or what, you know, there's all that whole world. And I think, you know, there's this is again one of those topics where I'm about to sound stupid because I don't know all the details of it, but I know that Unity, for example, has had this, and I've read it before, about levels of consciousness. You know, there's that victim consciousness, and then moving to victor consciousness, and then moving to that consciousness where we can be responsible for it. And sometimes I think, like, if I have a client who is so ensconced in victim consciousness, I don't expect her to go from victim consciousness to 100% responsibility. I'm just happy to get her to victor.
Right. Right.
You know, if I can get her to victor, then we can move from there. But depending on how one's past, and if they've been abused or not, or had any kind of PTSD, or you know, that where the brain is and what the brain is doing, that some of that stuff is, whoo, man, it's
right.
Yeah, it's intense, and people can't even see it. It's like the water they're swimming in, so they can't see it.
Right.
So if we can just move the consciousness to victor consciousness, that's a big step.
Right.
Yeah. And
well,
then,
it's the story. Like, because for me, the story originally was I deserve this.
Right.
And then it was I don't deserve this.
Right.
But that's not the same as I set a boundary.
Right.
You know, I'm in control.
Right.
I'm deciding the narrative.
Right.
Is another jump.
Yes. Huge. Oh yeah. It is hard. It is hard.
It's hard. I see that all over in my, like, social media interactions. Anything that I talk about brings guilt to women, because we just, like, live in guilt.
Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yes.
Shame and guilt, right? Which we touched on that last time. We talked about Elizabeth Gilbert had a thing about tribal shame, right? And that part of, I think, what the community of women here that have gone through my seminar do for each other is they help eliminate that tribal shame. They come immediately because they've done the work together. They come from a place of not willing to buy into that with each other. But there is something, and I know for myself, it's been there. But man, I don't know if I ever had it the way. Well, I guess I go to making myself wrong. It's maybe the same conversation. But boy, shame and guilt are automatic. They're automatic responses from women.
Yeah.
But I don't find them automatic responses from men. And I've coached a lot of men. So it's not like I haven't worked with men. I've worked with men. I only went to start, I've been coaching I've had my own business for 10 years. And before that, I coached for a couple of years. So I would say I've been coaching for 12 years. And I've only exclusively coached women for the last, say, 20 months. And so, you know, I've coached a lot of guys.
Is there an equal and opposite to that?
That's a good question. Maybe anger and blaming. I mean,
okay.
I'm making that up, but I don't, you know, I don't know if that's the blaming part. There's I've coached a lot of men through giving up. You know, women go to shame, men go to blame.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So how do you coach?
Post, right?
Yes. How do you coach women through shame and guilt?
Well, always the first thing we take on is the very first hook list every woman has from the beginning of coaching is to start having their eyeball on their own self-talk. And so we immediately go to starting to identify what are the ways that you're already always beating the crap out of yourself. Right. And then to see if we can start to eliminate that. And then we come from that perspective that what you focus on gets bigger. And so, you know, if you're somebody who hasn't done personal development in the past, or this is your beginning into that, I have them listening to it in the car on the way to work. You know, sometimes it's Jack Canfield, the Success Principles, guys like that more than women. But Hay House Radio, Oprah, some women love Joel Osteen, if they come from a faith-based or Christian perspective. You know, I as a coach, one of the things I try to do is have a wealth of resources, and depending on the person's personality and their culture, what's going to resonate with them. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm dead wrong. I've had clients come back to me like, what was that? I hated that book, you know, or I can't even.
So are these just like positive reframing so that they're coming?
Well, you know, I mean, because personal development, if you really look, understanding your narrative and being able to be clear about what you're speaking and what you're thinking and where your focus is 99% of it. Right. And so there isn't a personal development person out there that isn't approaching that from someplace. They all come at it from different directions, but pretty much it's a common theme now that your belief systems that have been running in your brain since you were a baby are what create your narrative, and what you believe about yourself creates the way you would see the world.
Right. It's like the pessimist and optimist are both right.
Exactly. Exactly. And so every personal development person comes from that perspective at some level. And then depending on what they're dealing with, I try to find the personal development person that can speak more to whatever they're dealing with. But my point is that being surrounded by success, or being surrounded by people who are talking about success and focusing on that, is always going to have them lifted up a little bit until they can start to do it on their own. Because going from being a shame, blame, you know, guilt-ridden person, if that's a constant narrative, it's a muscle to flex to start to not do that.
Right, especially if all the people you're surrounded with
are
doing the same thing.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing, exactly. And they travel in packs. So,
right,
right.
Yeah, because we attracted them.
Right.
Which is hard, especially if you're the first one trying to make a new way for yourself.
Right. Yeah. Which is why the power posse is so important.
The power posse.
Right.
It sounds like I'm picturing like pink. I don't know. They're wearing tutus, like power posse. I don't know what this is doing for me.
Well, it's interesting because as much as I love my friends in my power posse, we're also not people who, you know, if I'm going to go have a beer, I'm not going to they're not the people I'm going to invite.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. But they are those people that keep me in that conversation of personal development and always pushing myself and always. And also from that particular group, you know, I think there's also a world of difference, especially between men and women versus it's interesting because I am somebody who's kind of a hard-ass coach. Like I don't tolerate a lot of, you know, if you want to roll around in your crap for a long time, I get bored.
Right.
I just get bored.
Right.
And so, and I have had to check myself because sometimes I move too quick to, what are you gonna do about that? You know, how are you gonna, you know? And so sometimes I've heard my clients echo stuff back to me when I'm very clear that what I'm in the conversation, the first thing I would say to them is stop making yourself wrong. But what they think I'm gonna say is get over it. You know what I
Right.
mean? That's not where I'm coming from. I
Right.
always want them to give up making themselves wrong first,
Mhm.
and then take responsibility for it. But my particular power posse is always coming from a place of genuine, absolute. You are loved. You are loved. You are, no matter what. The
Mhm.
first thing is you are loved, and then get busy. You are
Yeah.
loved,
Yeah.
then get busy.
Well,
You're
and that's
loved,
what my
then
friends
get
are like,
busy.
which I love,
And
and
so-
it's just all of my friends now
Right.
because I don't need anyone to agree with me,
Right.
and it's not like I don't, I want everyone to disagree with me all the time. But if I'm frustrated, I can call any one of my friends and say, "This is happening," and blah blah blah, and they're gonna go, "I get it. That sucks, and I love you, and let's talk about how you showed up there." Like, and that's always, when I'm the one doing that, I'm always like, I totally get it. So she just reeled you right in there, and you fit, and you said the things, and you even thought about saying it in a kind of diplomatic way, and whatever it is. Like, I get it. And
Right. Yeah.
How did you not show up as your best self there?
Right.
That's always the good question,
That's
and it's a
great
loving question, especially
Sure.
when you're with somebody that isn't judging you,
Right.
and that feels safe. And that's the only friends I want to have.
Yeah.
Because I can get a team to cheer that I'm always right, but it doesn't help me become better.
So boring too.
It is
and
boring.
It's so boring, and to live in that world of complaint all the time is just
Right.
For me. It's just boring. I just have done
Right.
I don't have it, and it's. I had a coach one time, one of my favorite coaches ever, and I'll never forget this phrase that she said to me, which is, "Jay, you can be a life sucker or a life breather. Choose." And I've never forgotten that. And there's some people who show up in the world as life sucking, and people who continue to live in complaint over and over and over again. It's life sucking to people. It doesn't breathe life into people. It doesn't do anything but suck the life out of people. And so I don't have a lot of tolerance for that. And I get bored with it. But at the same time, I also have family members and friends that I've had forever and ever and ever that I also have to just learn to sometimes shut my mouth and not be a coach and just let people be how they're going to be, So unsolicited coaching is something I do try to keep my mouth shut as much as possible. It's none of my damn business.
Right. Just because it's presenting in front of you doesn't mean you need to go fix it.
Right. Yeah. Or even,
engage
inquire.
with it.
Right. Engage with it. Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can just love it.
Right.
And sometimes I've gotten better and better at being able to access ways to just come from a place of affirming that everything's, I know you're a powerful person, that's all going to work out. My wife is brilliant at that. My wife is brilliant at not giving people agreement. If you were to come to my wife with a complaint, she is amazing at not giving you agreement for that complaint, but in lifting you up in a way of saying, maybe that person was having a bad day, or, she's never going to give you agreement for that. Sometimes that's frustrating because I want agreement. But she is masterful.
My husband just straight up does not engage me, and it got shorter and shorter over time, and more if I'm this happened today, and he's like, cool. The other day he said, "Do you want eggs?" Got it. Yep. I would like some eggs. Which is helpful to me because I know how to sit and spin on it.
Oh, me too.
Here's everybody's doing this to piss me off, and I'm like, I'm gonna analyze this to the core, and I'm gonna figure out what it is about that person that triggers me. And in some ways, it's helpful if you can do that from a place
and that's what I train and teach people to do. Absolutely.
Yeah, but if you're doing it from a neuroses of I'm ruining it, or they're doing it at me, or whatever.
Those are some of my hardest clients because I'm not an overthinker, at all. I just I think about stuff, but then I don't sit and think about and stew about
for
things that might happen, and God. And so those are my clients that overthink everything.
Yeah.
Those are my stop that. God, it's hard to nip that sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have to think of the long chain reaction of what our thing might do and cause. And, all the ways we might be judged or have future shame. We're going to shame future selves for the possibilities in the
that
choice.
I might be thinking about.
Yeah. I used to sell glasses and saw this conversation only in women, really. I'm trying to think of an example with men. occasionally we'd have a male client that worked with conservative people regarding their money. And then they would need to have like tortoiseshell friends or something. And they were very decisive and then would just come and get it. There wasn't a big drama about it, but they knew for my job, I require this look, fine. But women choosing glasses, just like for their face, had this long conversation about how their friends might respond, how their peers at work would respond. Would they be taken seriously or not? It's like, and it's, you want to say it's just glasses, but you're just watching someone unfold all of their potential shame for later in a choice that, in my opinion, they should just get to make for their face.
Yeah. Well, and I think women in particular are second guessed about everything all the time. So, I mean, that's something as a guy moving through the world as a man. I shared this in this interview I did, this podcast interview I did last week, where I would walk into meetings because there's a time when you're transition that you forget that this face is that it's a bearded face, that it's a man's face. And so I would walk in meetings going, I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man, reminding myself that no one is going to question me. No one is going to second guess me. No one is going to wonder or future shame that whole world of what's going to happen that I'm going to get embarrassed about and I'm going to get called on the carpet about.
Right.
As a man, that never happens.
Oh, that makes me mad.
I just walk in and do whatever the hell I want. And I'm a white man over 40, so of course I can do anything.
You're like the authority on
absolutely
life.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm white, but I'm a woman under 40.
Right.
There's a whole slew of things I can and can't do.
Right.
But something I've only recently come to that has moved me through that anger, because anger is a real productive place for me. Fire is, anger's different, if that makes sense. But that it's not held me back so much as it has refined my way of leading. Okay. Like all of the ways that I am perceived negatively for being assertive, I've found ways around that are more compassionate, that are more empathetic. I think ahead and not in a future shame way, but how can I best be heard?
Sure.
And I stopped having, particularly my activism, be about being the loudest, but about being the most thoughtful, so that hopefully I can change some minds. So I feel like it's caused me to fine tune. And as opposed to before, I would have said, I want that same authority. I want to walk into a room and I want to just be listened to because I'm there. Now I kind of want men to have a little bit more scrutiny, like not future shaming, but like to learn to show up in a way that is more compassionate, that does think about the audience, that considers how they best want to communicate, as opposed to just getting all of
Well,
that
that's
authority.
not to say that I think that all men don't. I mean, definitely there are men who are better leaders than other men.
Sure.
It's just this world that we live in where there is an automatic assumption that because I'm a guy, I automatically know what I'm talking about. And to be honest, there is this other part of being a guy that was shocking to me that I don't know how to explain or not. And I don't want to turn it into any kind of like, oh, men are victims, because they're not. But that there is this world where it's kind of a weird thing to show up in the world and have people kind of always expecting you to know what's going on. It's a little bit of pressure, almost like, oh, I'm supposed to know what's going on.
Right.
Like I'm supposed to be the person in charge. I'm supposed to, I don't know, get it.
Right.
And that has been, it's subtle, but it's a weird thing that men are trained, I think, to have that, to know those, from birth to growing up. And I missed out on all that training because I was trained as a woman.
Right.
And so when I first started showing up as a man, it was like, oh, these people are expecting me to know what's going on, and I have no clue.
Right.
Like I don't know what's happening.
I've always thought of that with cars and babies, because women are expected to know how to do everything with babies, and we aren't born with that knowledge.
Right.
We theoretically we can have a whole conversation about biologically knowing what to do for the baby, but when it comes to like how to do the diaper tabs, we don't have wiring that helps with that, but we just figure it out because we're expected to, and in most cases there isn't another way. Like we just figure it out. And it's the same with men in cars. Like they just got to figure it out. And I think they jump in and figure it out because they're expected to. Whereas honestly, I don't know how to do stuff in my car. I was so proud. I was checking my oil the other day and realized I was sticking it in
the wrong hole.
I think they're totally wrong, which is so embarrassing. But I've always been able to be like, that's not my thing. I don't have to know how to do that.
Right.
So
and see, that's another thing too, where there's this world that for me, it was the thing, and I think someday I'll do a stand-up comedy bit about it. I used to do stand-up comedy.
Really?
Oh yeah. But I haven't done it forever. But one day, I'm convinced I'm gonna get up and do it. Just because looking at me, you don't know I'm trans.
Yeah.
So if I go up on stage and start talking about how I used to be a woman, they don't even know if it's real.
Right.
Right. But it is. But because I can speak to all this stuff. But
I want to go.
One of the things that is so interesting to me is that there is this world that women do take advantage of in terms of, well, I don't have to deal with that because guys will take care of it. Right. Right. You just said that.
Yeah.
And so now imagine that coming out of this face.
Right.
Right.
About babies.
Well, no, I mean about
anything.
Well, so I used to be that woman who would go, "Can you open this jar?" Right.
Yeah.
And then when you're a guy and you go, "Okay." Yeah. You forget. I can't ask him to do it because or you can't. I would, women work guys or flirt with guys in a particular way to get them to do things we want them to do. Mm-hmm. And I was that. I learned how to do that. I knew how to do that. And so then I'd be having this face, but I'd forget, and I'd be in a situation where I'm like starting to flirt with a guy, and then I'm like, oh, shit.
It's not working.
It's not working. It doesn't work the same way. Yeah. Same way with touch, with all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I told a story in the podcast about a young man who was around the age of my nephews, and he's riding like this, and his hair falls down his face. Mm-hmm. And I just reach over and tuck his hair behind his ear, mm-hmm. right? As a woman, that is not a big deal. Mm-hmm. But he looked up at this face.
Right.
And it was like,
and it wasn't cool.
What the fuck, dude? Yeah. And he wasn't mad about it. He was just kind of taken aback. So was I, because I then gasped because I was like, like, oh crap, I'm not supposed to touch guys like that.
Right.
Right. There's all sorts of unspoken rules we have about how men and women can function in the world.
Right.
That they're unspoken, but they're trained in us. Right. So when you're in that period, when I was in that period of I was on testosterone and I was looking like a man, but I hadn't been doing it for very long. I got me in trouble a couple times. Mm-hmm. I was also, as a woman, I would get by with being mouthy and mouthing off to men, mm-hmm. and cussing them out or whatever.
Right.
Oh God, the first time I did that coming out of my mouth, I almost got my ass beat.
Yeah.
Because guys will beat you up. I mean, they aren't going to take that shit from another guy.
Right.
Right. From a woman, they'll put up with that to some degree, but they're not going to take getting cussed out from a guy. They'll punch you in the head.
Right.
So I almost got beat up. Mm-hmm. So it's those kind of things that are the subtleties of how we're trained as human beings I just find fascinating.
Well, and it's an interesting conversation, and I think it's a tough conversation. Like for myself, I come from a feminist perspective, and so I think the really extremist viewpoint on that is we don't need to talk about any of those things because of all of your privilege, because of the money you make over what I make, and blah, 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 which are very important things to talk about. Yeah. And so having conversations about how, sometimes men get the bad deal and the gender thing is not necessarily taking away from those big social consciousness changes we'd like to see, but it's a conversation.
Right.
It's a conversation about how we show up and what that means for all of us.
Yeah.
One of the things I see a lot whenever I use the big feminism F word is people are like, talking about chivalry, and they don't want to let go of chivalry and stuff, and do I want my husband to open doors for me and I want equal pay? And I'm like, well, I don't require anyone to open doors for me, and honestly, like the car stuff is like anything to do with science for me is I'm gonna go to a professional. That's not my thing, but I could do that. I can handle that myself. I can open my own doors, but I also open doors for other people, and if a man or woman wants to open a door for me, I'm totally down with that, and yes, I want equal pay. Right. Like we can have all of these conversations at once.
And can't we participate? Like, can't we all have equal pay and all those things that we want to create, but also give people the room to have, especially romance and chivalry is a part of romance. And, there's a whole part of the LGBT community called the butch femme community, which is some trans guys like me are still part of. And there's people who would call their gender butch, that they're masculine women. Part of the butch femme dance is that ultra femme girl and a masculine girl boy or girl, and doing that butch femme dance is part of that. It's romantic. It's part of our culture.
Well, and
You
there's
know what I
another
mean? And
into
we
that.
love it.
Yeah,
You know, I
like
don't wanna
women
take
are
that
supposed
away.
to, well, we're going chivalry all the
Right.
way, right? And then the dude opens up the car door and the woman gets in, but
When
then
she's
the other
gonna
part,
unlock the door.
there's just like a two-way.
Right.
There's
It's a
there's
two-way
expected
street.
things
There's
on
totally
both
expected
sides,
things.
and that's an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah.
And I think navigating each relationship.
Yeah, well, and in the butch femme community, I mean, it was femmes who, it was falling in love with femme women who were ensconced in that dynamic of butch femme, who treated me like a butch and did their role, that made me know myself as loved for the first time, as attractive for the first time. I mean, my brother still likes to say I used to be a homely, angry girl, and now I'm a good-looking, confident guy. I was not a homely girl.
Yeah.
To the paradigm of what women are supposed to look like, maybe, right? But to a femme, I was a butch.
Right.
I was a decent looking butch. But I lived my life thinking I was ugly because, and this is something I was thinking about this in the shower, and at some point I want to talk for us to do a talk even more about this because we're starting to run out of time now.
Okay.
But so I had this experience my whole life that I was unwanted and ugly because men were not hitting on me. Men were not attracted to me. Men were not. Now, I was a gay person.
Now, even though you weren't particularly wanting attention for yourself.
Right.
But
Well, and in high school, junior high and high school, when I was still trying to figure all that out,
yeah.
I even had a boyfriend, but then when we broke up, other guys just weren't interested. Right. And so it hurt my feelings all the time. And I made it mean things about me, right? It piled on that low self-esteem. It piled on that self-loathing.
Right.
That even though I didn't want to engage with men, I wanted to be with women, but I was afraid of that. Right. But that incident, that men were not attracted to me as a woman, made me feel ugly and unwanted and unloved and all those things. Then when I came out as a butch and women were attracted to me looking like that, it changed my whole life. And almost every butch I know that's had that experience of having other women, like femme women, be attracted to their butchness, it has them puff up a little bit, right? It has them like stand taller and feel attractive, because to the rest of the world, they're not.
Right.
Right. And living like that for so long, it does stuff to you. And it's that world of what is somebody supposed to look like that makes them pretty or attractive or wanted or
and worthy.
Worthy.
At the bottom.
Ultimately worthy.
It just got interesting, and it's only 4 o'clock.
Well, we came back around to that world of worthiness and self-care, so that's where we want to end.
Good talk.
And whoever this viewer has been with us the whole time, thanks for being here.
That's awesome.
We're going to do more of these, so stay tuned.
Yeah. See you soon.
All right.
Let's see if it uploads.